Hi guys. So first thing that we're going to do is we're going to have a look at this little model here that I've made. I've just gone ahead and built all of these different pieces of geometry. And one of the things that I've also done is I've scaled them and I've moved them around in the scene. And so if you have a look, if you open up the the channel box over on the side here, you'll notice that I have all of these values in the scale and in the translate. Now these by what you would ideally want is for all of the translates, the rotates, and the scale to be uniform. The scale should all be set to 1, but if I type that in, you'll see that it increases the size of the geometry, which is what I don't want. I want them all to be 1, but I don't want them to be that size. So before we start animating, what I want you to do is select each one of these pieces of geometry, and we're going to go up into Modify, and then where it says Freeze Transforms, just click on Freeze Transforms and have a look and see what that does to the transforms over here. When we click on that, it resets them. And so what I want you to do is just select each one of these and just do that. I'm just wondering actually if I just region select around them, freeze transforms, you can do that too. Multi-select and then just freeze transforms. Now the next thing that we're going to do is we want to attach all of these different pieces to each other on this model, because what we want to do is we want to be able to move this top piece here and for everything underneath it to go along for the ride, but at the moment they're not linked or they're not parented. Okay, so one way that we can have a look at this, if we just go into Windows and then bring up the outliner window, you'll see here that we've got all of these different components. We've got the base 2, this little ball piece here which attaches to the to link is there. We've got link 1, link 2, link 3, and wrecking ball. And you can also see that each one of these pieces of geometry has its own unique little icon depending on the type of geometry it is. So what we're going to do is we're going to attach each one of these pieces to each other. But what we want to do is we want to be able to rotate these as well, so that when we rotate them, it rotates from the correct pivot point. And as you can see, by selecting each one of these pieces, the pivot point is in the center. What we want ideally is for the pivot to be up the very top. From here we want this piece of geometry to be swinging from the top, but at the moment when we select it, it's swinging from the middle. So what we're going to do first is we're going to change the pivot. So if you just hit select each one of these links one at a time, and then go into your move transform mode, which is this one here, or the hotkey is W, and then hit D, and what that will do is that hold down D and then just move the pivot. So holding down D, move the pivot up to the very top of that piece of geometry. Oops. I'll just zoom in here. Hold down D, and what it's doing is now when you release D and then select that piece of geometry again and go into rotate mode, which is the hotkey E. Hotkey is E. Now when we swing it, that's what we want. We want it to be swinging from that pivot point up there. Actually, it might just be a little bit high, but I think that's fine for now. So now what I want you to do, just go ahead and each one of these pieces, just do the same thing. Holding down D and moving the pivot, holding down D and moving the pivot, and do the same thing for the ball as well, because we want that to also swing from the pivot point. And then just do a quick check and make sure, just release the hotkey D and just do a check and make sure that each one of those pieces is swinging from the top. Fantastic. Now the next thing that we're going to do is we need each one of these. When I'm rotating this, ideally what I want to have happen is that all of these links should be attached to it. And as you can see at the moment, they're not. They're independent. So I'm just going to undo that. The one way of doing it, and this is a quick and simple way of doing it, is if I work down from the bottom all the way through the top, so that I know that I want the wrecking ball to be attached to the link 3, which is this one here, and I know that link 3, I need that one to be attached to link 2, and so on, and so on, and so on, all the way up this hierarchy. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to create a hierarchy where this top piece up here is the parent of all of these other pieces, and all of these other pieces would be called a child. Okay, so if this is the parent, this piece here is the child of base 1, and base 2 is the parent of base 3, or base 2 is the parent of base 1 is the parent of base 2 and base 3. These could be children of this one. So what do I mean by parent and child? Well, over here you'll notice that if we go into edit, we've got parent. Okay, so I can select a parent and then nominate which are the children. It used to be called master and slave, which is a little bit politically incorrect, I guess, and now it's parent is a lot better. And I also think that, you know, children just come along for the ride. The parent often is the one that does all the work, rotates and translates, and the child is just connected to it and just hangs out, do nothing. It's probably a lot more sensible than master and slave, seeing as how master, the slave, would normally do all the work. So what we've got here is the opportunity to select the parent, and then I can select the child. Now normally, I'll just try this. Normally what you would do is you would hit shift and then try to select the piece underneath it. What I'm trying to do is select this piece, but because I've got this selected, and you can see here that the rotate manipulator icon is too large, there's one way that I could do it. I can either do it through here, or I could hit minus, and then that will reduce the scale of that icon, and then I could select that in here, or if I wanted to, I could select it here and then shift select, and so it's the parent and then the child, and then you can just see over here where its hotkey is P, you can just say, you know, parent. Oops, sorry, I've done that wrong. Just undo that, because that is the wrong way around. Forget that I said that. Okay, so it will be this one here, and then I'm going to hit that one there, and then I could hit hotkey P, and what that's done is, if I have a look at this over here, so sorry, that is right, you want to select the child first and then the parent last, and if you have a look, when I select the very top piece, the child comes for a ride with that. It's connected now. Whereas if I select this bottom piece, because it's lower in the hierarchy, it's not going to affect anything which is above it. Alright, so that's one way that you could do it. I could select this piece, and then I could select this piece here, and I could just hit hotkey P, and then if I come over into the outliner, you'll notice that this base 3 piece is now a child of base 2. Another way that we could do it is I could just, in the outliner here, select the bottom, this ball here, and I'm just going to middle mouse click and then drag it so that it attaches itself to link 3. Okay, and then select link 3, drag it, middle mouse click, and drag that onto link 2. Okay, holding down the middle mouse key, the middle mouse button when you're doing it, and the same thing again. Select it, hold down the middle mouse button, drag it onto link 1, and you can see there that what it's done is it's created this hierarchy as well. So if I select, I'll just hit plus to increase that, the little widget size. I call it a widget, and that's just because that's what it was called a long time ago in other places that I've worked. And now you can see that it's swinging. All of these pieces are swinging. Now the only problem with it is that I've got two hierarchies here. I still have to connect the base and the links together. So you can do it one of two ways. I can either select that and then select this and then just hit P, and now what I want to do is I'm just going to test everything out, and I'll also open up, I'm going to open this all up just to show you what it's done. Now this is interesting because what it has done is this is now attached to this top piece here, to the very top. It's not attached to this base 3. You can see there that link 1 is now connected to base 1. That's completely fine. In this case I could definitely do that. If I wanted to change it so that link 1 was a child of base 3, I could select link 1, click the middle mouse button and drag and drop that to base 3, and now what it does is it is now a child of base 3. Okay? If I wanted to undo what I've done, I could either just hit Control Z or select link 1, for example, middle mouse click, and let's just drag it down to the bottom here. And now what it's done is it's separated these two again. So this is its own hierarchy, and this here is its own hierarchy, and this is not affected by what this one here is doing. Okay, so I could middle mouse click, drag that onto here, and it makes it a child of base 1. Or I could select that link 1, and I could then just in the outliner just drag and drop that to base 3. Okay. Now, to find the outliner, hopefully you know where the outliner is. It's under Windows. You'll find it right there. Great. Okay, so that is how we set up our rig. Now the next thing that you want to do is just save this file somewhere safe, because this is what we'll be animating with.